Okay, so a new One Punch Man chapter just dropped, and this chapter is chapter 164. And this chapter is actually called The Abominable Fist That Turned Against God. Now, this chapter was, to be honest, pretty interesting. A lot of stuff to talk about. A lot of people might not like how this chapter went, but to be honest, personally, I thought it was pretty good. I don't think anything too crazy is notable for this chapter. I feel like things could have been better. I think things could have been worse, etc. But apart from that, before we get into the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to this channel if you are new, because if you can't already tell, I post a lot of One Punch Man content. So if you are a One Punch Man enthusiast, then make sure you leave a like and subscribe. I have a big video in the works currently, but of course, I'm still going to try and keep up with releasing the chapters and the breakdowns and all that good stuff. But apart from that, let's just get into the video. There's quite a lot of stuff to talk about in this one. So starting off, this chapter starts off with like the rest of the heroes, on the boat and everything. And they're all surprised because they see that Pig God is apparently drowned. But we know that actually Pig God isn't drowned. Well, because he's Pig God. But anyway, back to the whole fight with Saitama versus Garo. We see that Garo is pretty angry and is telling, Saitama to quit fooling around. And he goes in for a barrage of punches on Saitama. But we see that Saitama just dodges pretty easily. And he says, oh, pretty sweet. How many hands you got? And Saitama says, technique doesn't work, speed doesn't work, power doesn't work, and he's wondering how he's actually going to be able to take down Saitama. So then Saitama then also realizes that Garo has just grown 2 more arms and he's now like a 4-armed demon or something. But anyway, moving on, Garo tries to use creativity and places both palms on Saitama and is about to, I guess, just straight up drive down into the earth. And we see that's exactly what he does, and he uses an extreme power attack and drives right into the heart of the volcano and shoots right through the earth. Like, I'm not even lying, I was pretty surprised when I saw this. But we see that Garo just goes straight through the earth and he goes through like the crust. I didn't do geography, but I did it for a little bit in my earlier times in school. But I'm pretty sure this is like the crust, the mantle, the core and all that stuff, and he goes right through all of that and back out onto the other side of the earth. And we see that, I guess, this has caused like some tremors and it's caused some, I guess, some problems in the sky. And we see that the airplane has literally crashed into the sea, and we see a bunch of civilians on the on the airplane they're panicking and they're wondering what to do. And we see that, I guess, the effects of this attack from Garo is just on like a continental, I mean, this may even calculate to be a planetary feat, but we can see this is definitely one of the most impressive feats we've seen in the series so far. And I just want to kind of take a segment of the video just to talk about this. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, how does this scale against Boros' collapsing star roaring cannon or his moon kick? Well, I can say for sure that this probably is above Boros' moon kick, just off of like just looking at it and putting them side by side. I would say this is probably more impressive than Boros' moon kick. But if we're talking about the collapsing star roaring cannon, that's a whole nother, I feel like that's in a whole nother league to what Garo just did. Garo with this attack didn't or can't destroy the earth, but he has definitely caused effects on a planetary level, or maybe on a continental level or something like that. But Boros is able to destroy the entire earth with one attack. Of course, it does take away his life, but regardless, we can't really put Garo on the same level of that attack, when comparing it and all that good stuff. But I will say that this is definitely Garo's most impressive feat that he's shown so far in his entire showings in the entire series. But anyway, moving on, we see some more pretty interesting stuff happens, and it says in another dimension, Blast is saying the space around the earth is starting to distort. The magnetic and gravitational fields are going crazy, and we see that I guess Blast points towards the earth, and we see that the earth has actually is bulging according to what they're saying. And we see that I guess Blast's group, or Guardians of the Galaxy, or whatever you want to call them, they're like, it looks like some of the oceanic plates that have subducted into the earth via crustal movements were pushed back out by some powerful force. And we see someone that looks very familiar say, oh, who could have done that? And we see that this looks a lot like Boros. And I might make a completely separate video to this, who knows, but let's just take a minute to talk about this guy. And we can tell that this guy definitely is like some sort of, I guess, relative to Boros, whether it's they're the same species or they're like brothers or something. But, you know, this is definitely someone that looks, you know, extremely like Boros. And I would like to say this might be Boros's brother or something like that. But let's just be safe and say this is like someone that is the same species as Boros, and he could be working with Blast here to maybe protect Boros's planet. I'm not too sure if Boros destroyed his own planet, but that would not make sense. But maybe he just conquered his planet. But this guy could be like someone that is like a replacement for Boros, since Boros has died and he's taken the good route and joined the Blast group to try and, you know, defeat God. But again, that's like a completely separate thing I'll talk about later, or maybe in a completely different video. But moving on, we see that this lion looking guy, or like a beast, or yeah, he looks a lot like a lion, says, "I can't imagine that any earthlings could have done such a thing. It's probably just an anomalous tectonic shift. Either way, that bastard is gonna break through the dimensional seal. We've got to hurry up and repair it. And they are all rushing towards Earth right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Blast's group make another appearance in the next chapter and actually show up to where Garo and Saitama actually are currently." But moving on, we see that Garo finally completely lands his final attack on Garo. The attack he did to go through the earth finally completes, and we see that this doesn't affect Saitama at all. And we see that obviously Saitama just comes back and uses a consecutive normal punches, and we see that Garo actually manages to survive this. So again, another pretty impressive feat on Garo's part, if I do say so myself. So now I'm pretty confident I can say that, you know, Garo's probably around the same level of durability as Boros in his meteoric form. And I'm pretty sure that's fair to say, since Boros was able to survive consecutive normal punches, and now Garo has been able to survive consecutive normal punches. It's only fair to put them around the same durability, I would say. But at the same time, you can make the argument that, you know, Saitama isn't trying to kill Garo, or, you know, all that other stuff, but I would still say it's still relative. I'd say they're around the same durability. If you're asking me just from my own judgment, I would say they're probably around the same durability, regardless of whether or not Saitama's taking Boros more seriously than Garo, etc, etc. But moving on, Garo says that, you know, he can't keep up with him. He says to destroy the abominable fist that has turned against God. And of course, he's, you know, reminiscing back to what Sage Centipede said. And Garo realizes that, you know, he's actually talking about Saitama here. He wasn't talking about him. And we see that Saitama just punches Garo in the face and sends him flying past multiple mountains. And I guess this could be, another feat, but this punch isn't named, so you don't really know what's going to happen here. But we see that obviously Garo lands and manages to tank this blow, but he's pretty much been defeated at this point. And Garo realizes that, you know, he can't really keep up with Saitama. He's all out of ideas. And we see that Garo then kind of realizes that his dream of becoming absolute evil have fallen apart completely. You know, and he's let that happen by Saitama's hands. And I feel like Garo's coming to a bit of, acceptance that, you know, he doesn't actually mind if that, you know, dream comes down to Saitama taking away from him, because he realizes that Saitama is, worthy of this, since he's able to actually defeat him in his quote-unquote final form. But moving on, so, you know, Garo just goes at Saitama as kind of like a last-ditch effort. And, you know, he kind of says maybe this is how he wanted to die all along. And he goes into punch Saitama, but Saitama just blocks it pretty easily. And Saitama says, "Enough already. There's no point in keeping this up. You already know that, don't you?" And, I guess Garo does know that, because he's pretty much accepted that Saitama has won this fight and there's no need to fight anymore. But then we see that Garo says, kill me already. You're a hero, aren't you?" And Saitama says, "Sounds like you have some hero issues after all. If there's something you want to talk about, I'm all ears." And he points towards a rundown shack in the corner. And they both end up sitting inside the shack in a pretty cool double spread. And we see that the moon in the background is still watching them. And as we all know, the moon is signified, or is a signal of God watching down on everything. But that's pretty much the end of the chapter. And I feel like people might not like this chapter for multiple reasons, because right now it looks like, where wrapping everything up with the fight and whatnot, and we still haven't seen some of the most iconic moves in the series, or in the fight, I would say. And we haven't seen the serious table flip or the serious headbutt. So I'm not too sure when that's going to be implemented. Many things could happen to somehow implement that in later, but for now I'm not too sure how to feel about this chapter. But I would say it's probably like maybe an 8 out of 10, maybe, because there were some pretty cool panels here and there, some pretty impressive feats being shown, etc, etc. But overall there is some things, or there's more to be desired, I would say. But apart from that, that's pretty much all I have to say for this video. If you like the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And apart from that, I'll see you in my next video.